Now let's look at singletons in Angular. And this is actually going to be pretty easy and straightforward because in Angular, all services are singleton. That's just the way it works. Actually, if you come over to that plunk that we've been using, I've changed some things a little bit, but if you look at our task repository, get rid of this for right now, at the bottom where I do an app.service task repo, what app.service does is it actually calls new task repo. It goes ahead and news it up right there and then serves that back and forth. And because it does that, because it news it up automatically, just the same way we were dealing with the node side, it's going to hand that same service back and forth to everything. And let me demonstrate to you what that looks like just so that you trust me, that you know that this is what it does. So I have the task repo, but I've added this called variable in the same way we had it over on the node side when we were looking at the node singletons. And I have a get method, and I increment called, and I added called on the end. And I have a save method doing the same thing. Now I'm using this task repository in two places. The first place is on script.js, just in my main controller. When I'm building out my task lists, I'm pulling from task repository 1 and 2. And so what you will see is when I run this, if I pull up my console, you see right here down at the bottom, getting task 1 called 1 time, getting task 2 called 2 times. Now I'm also using this repository over on our task. When I do a save, task repository.save this, what save is doing is just writing out to the database, or in this case just the console, saving task name to the database, and I've added that called. So task.js is using task repository just the same way that my controller is using task repository. Now when task.js executes save, what you see happen is saving task 2 to the database, I've now been called 3 times. Saving task 1 to the database, I've now been called 4 times. And every time I click this, I'm just incrementing. So singletons, in the context of what we're talking about, are fairly predominant. Almost everything's a singleton. If I knew it up on the node side before I hand it back to my module.exports, then that becomes a singleton just by virtue of the way CommonJS works and the way modules work in Node. If I create a service in Angular, then that service becomes a singleton. That's just the way Angular is going to work when it's dealing with services. So that's the different way we create objects. Let's sum that up real quick.